teaching and inculcation of knowledge. So to do great things from a system that is really well. Look at the federal government. How much do they give education despite all these problems? Despite the burden of schools in the Northeast and all the problems inculcated by the Boko Haram insurgency. They've done actually nothing. They apportion money to politicians to go and execute projects. So this doesn't. I'll leave that. I'll just, that's my question.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert, for that. And let me just speak you on this, because later on we'll have to open up the gist. But you know that the APC convention is happening today in Abuja. What's your general take on that convention? We've got a lot of people. People are analyzing things, and the convention is on. What's your take on it? What do you think the outcome will be? Can you hear me? The outcome
will be the same way. The outcome will be, it doesn't lend for stability in the Nigerian political system. The fact that APC has not been able to get their act together or their house together has actually affected a lot of things. There has been infighting between the Unile faction and the other faction. Come to an end. Whether I like it or not, of the society, and it's also a reflection of the leadership, and it will also reflect on the business, on the socio-economic side of the country. Consequently, APC has been dragging her convention, these issues have been cropping up. Consequently, the country is in for a problem. I only see APC imploding, and I pray to God that it doesn't happen.
Okay. It seems like this is that doomsday happening right in front of us. A lot of people have said the APC will implode, and well, let's see how it plays out. That's on to our gist today. We have very interesting conversations lined up. Chinyere is set to join us from Lagos now. Chinyere, good morning. If you can hear me, do unmute yourself, please. Okay. So while she gets on, stories lined up. First story: Nigeria needs to consume and export what they produce. And also, we're going to be looking at the police strike. Police chief warns officers against disobedience of lawful order. And there is also this gist about oil theft in the IOC fear collapse, as the federal government says 1.36 trillion crude stolen in 14 months. It's also looking at foreign investments. 14 Nigerian states seek $15 billion investments from the UAE. And sit at home. Soludo orders Anambra workers to report to work on Monday. And also a proper solution to frequent collapse of our national grid. That's what the UN Vice Chancellor charges engineers. And also, if we have time, we're going to also look at the Electoral Act and the rep to report to the NJC for empowering Malami to delete Section 84, subsection 12. So quick break. When we come back, of course, we get into the gist. Welcome back to ATN Saturday. And yes, on to this first conversation. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria says Nigerians need to consume what they produce and export the surplus after adding value to it. So Emefiele has said this at the 32nd seminar organized by the Central Bank of Nigeria by for finance correspondents and business editors and the likes. So what he said in the news, it says exchange rate, rather the seminar was themed exchange rate management and economic diversification in Nigeria, the PAVE option. In his message that the governor delivers, he talks about this PAVE, and he says, I am mindful of what our goals may appear, ambitions to some, but I'm resolute and determined that we can achieve it. Many countries that are much less endowed than Nigeria are doing it. Consider, for example, that agricultural exports alone for the Netherlands was about $120 billion last year. Yet the Netherlands has a landmass of about 42,000 square kilometers, which is much smaller than the landmass of Niger State alone at over 76,000 square kilometers. And this is what he says. And so he said that the Produce and Value Export PAVE initiative is expected to make Nigerians consume what they produce, add value to it, and even export the surplus. While some people are wondering what we're doing with all we have, the CBN is making this move with the PAVE project. I'm really wondering how this entire concept is going to unravel. But it makes sense to say produce and consume what we have, and then, of course, export the rest. But I'll go to Dr. Robert on this particular story. What's your take on this story, sir? If you can hear me, sir, do unmute yourself.
First of all, I would say that Emefiele is right on the bottom, but there is an underlying problem. We just talked about education. First and foremost, before Nigerians get to exportation, you must have, then you could have an economic boom, then conducive business environment, before those individuals will be able to produce, and the excesses will be exported. Now, all this, if you look at this 4 or 5, items I mentioned, Nigeria is barely surviving. For instance, we don't have an exportation culture, because when you get to areas where people should export, you see over-taxation, even over-taxation of businesses. Production is not really encouraged. Politicians don't want to, be involved. They want quick action projects that will bring them to the land. There is no conducive business environment because of there's no economic boom because of poor management of the economy by the political class. Then, least of all is the trained manpower. The government is not ensuring that the educational system Nigeria has to produce. So these are certain levels of things they should really consider. But he's right in saying that that is the only way out for a teeming economy. Now, like I write it, like your guest pointed out. You see, they should understand that the world is changing. Things are everybody is living. That people, it's a knowledge-based economy. If you don't have the knowledge, you cannot produce. When you kill the knowledge, it will affect everybody. But I would enjoy that the central bank go back to most institutions. But I've not seen them do much in the southeast and the southwest. They should go back and, in a way, finance some of these institutions so that they will be able to churn out adequate manpower. If it's buildings, they should erect. It should be an intervention by the central bank in the educational sector. And they begin that for farmers. But I should expect them to also do that at the university level, so that undergraduates themselves can even begin to go into mechanized agriculture. Not when you see somebody who studied animal science, comes out, he goes to work in the bank. He could be a billionaire from working in the agricultural sector, which is adequately trained to do. But it goes back to take paid employment, which is not what is tenable now. So there are some issues that we should really tackle. The central bank is doing a great intervention, but it should be channeled towards the right direction. Because I remember some years during the Soludo era, Soludo began the central bank EDC project, Entrepreneurship Development Center project, which he did for both the Southeast, South, and the Southeast, South, and the North. I don't know how that project has gone on in recent times, but when it came out, it was really an eye-opener for many young ones who understood that they can make money from different sources. They can have multiple income streams that can help them to employ labor. So these are issues that have to be done. The central bank, I should commend their forthrightness and their role in pushing the horizon of what's happening to the people so that people can understand what is happening. But I will also encourage them to go further, to go to these institutions and affect and change the standard.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. Chinyere is set to join us on this conversation now. Chinyere, good morning.
Good morning, yeah. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How is Lagos this morning?
Very well. And how's Port Harcourt?
Oh, we're doing okay, as you know.
All right. Good morning, Afeni, and good morning, Dr. Roberts, for joining the show today. We really do appreciate you.
Morning, Chinere.
My question is directed to Dr. Roberts. Yeah, looking at factors that have mitigated or impeded local production in Nigeria, it ranges from insecurity to lack of tools for mechanized farming. But my question is, would restricting food import boost local production vis-a-vis the demand and supply composites? Yeah.
Could you take the question again?
Yes, I said there are factors that have mitigated local production in Nigeria, from insecurity to lack of tools for mechanized farming. The question is, would restricting food importation boost local production?
Definitely not. For instance, it's just like saying restricting Nigerians from traveling abroad would really boost the same, Nigerians staying in the country. No, it only creates a bottleneck with a fuel because our system does not encourage people to give their best. Oftentimes, for instance, let me take a clear
question. Let's take rice as a clear scenario. We've talked about the bringing in of foreign rice, which is a major challenge in our local rice production. If we stop bringing in foreign rice, will this boost our local production? Because some Nigerians would prefer to patronize foreign rice to our local rice. So if we come to that point as a nation where we stop importation of foreign rice, will this boost our local production and also encourage locals to buy our own products, so to speak?
Okay. See, I want you to understand something. When you restrict any business within your country, you should have a target when you should open up your border. Allow that business to reach its mark. Once to have injected a lot into the economy, achieve parity in terms of production, the production capacity with foreign rice, and the quality should also increase. The government is expected to inject funds to farmers, train them, give them more arable or more land where they can farm these products, and encourage them by giving them mechanized implements to farm. But if you do not and only restrict, in the long run, the curve will become negative. It will not be competitive. You cannot restrict for the whole of your life. You cannot restrict for eternity. The restriction must have a timeline. It could either be short run, long run, or for a time base. But when our government begins to think that they can restrict totally and for all the time, it is not possible. Because even some of those farmers you're talking about, some of their products may be affected when they store them. Some of them may get burnt. And again, if Nigerians are only producing for to consume by themselves, maybe is the need for what the central bank governor said. Nigerians should be encouraged to produce after meeting up with local agricultural needs to export the surplus, which we haven't done. So these are the issues.
Okay, so Dr. Robert, I believe you are in Nigeria. Sometime last year, we saw that the president commissioned a rice pyramid in the north, where over 1 million bags of unmilled paddy rice collected from the alcoboras from all over the country were arranged in pyramids to symbolize Nigeria's capacity to produce rice for domestic consumption and export, which means government is doing something in that regard. Not just restricting importation, but they're also working towards ensuring that we have it more than enough. Now, we still see some sort of deficit in that sector. Do you think government is not taking the right approach?
Government is trying to politicize something that shouldn't be politicized. From the granite pyramid to the rice pyramid, I think each region of Nigeria should be encouraged to produce their own food, like we have just said. Farmers all over the world, if you look at the amount given by the central bank to northern farmers, it far exceeds what was given to the southern people. So it's being politicized from my own point of view. Then if you look at the anchor borrowers, are they really giving the farmers, or they are giving some farmers? The majority of the big men are targeting this funds for personal use, because the trickle-down effect of what they have done should have made rice to come down to minimum of a 50 kg bag, maximum of 10,000 naira or 15,000 naira. But you're not seeing it is even going up. Now you're asking a question: if that pyramid, my own take is that pyramid was politicized. I don't think it is effective. I don't think it is sustainable. Because if they could gather it over a period of time, not to the south, have those farmers in the north been exporting that rice to outside this country?
Actually going a long way to support and aid in other African countries. We see things like Flutterwave and the Paystacks and several other tech industries, tech startups, businesses, products in technology, both software and hardware, are finding more and more applications outside the country. But the fact is, this is mainly due to the individuals creating them. Sadly, we have lots of startups, lots of inventors, creators moving their companies outside the country because of favorable economic climates, and this is a massive loss to us. Not just the brain drain, but then the economic implications of losing these great ideas to neighboring countries like Kenya and Ghana. So it's massive, and all this can be curbed if we are willing to put in the effort and say, okay, first of all, it starts by appreciating what we have. We produce this in Nigeria. We produce this in Nigeria. We spread the word. We produce this in Nigeria, and how we can start by implementing this first. It's sad that we tend to appreciate things that come from outside the country more. So you can see someone start a business in Nigeria, it's not working. He just goes to Kenya or Ghana and then exports that same product into Nigeria, and all of a sudden it becomes the rave. Everyone is talking about it, everyone is appreciating and implementing that. So it starts by appreciating the products we have here, the minds we have here, the creations we have here. And if more favorable economic climates would definitely do a lot more to help, especially going back to the educational sector. You're coming out of school, whatever course of study, whatever skill you have, and you find platforms and industries that are ready, that are available to apply and employ the skills you have. Of course, it does a lot to settle one, and then in situations and environments like that, people can innovate, people can create. So if we go back to the agricultural thing, beyond banning and stopping and saying, okay, no more importation of these products, do we have the capacity to sustain ourselves beyond importation? I think first of all, we look at how much of a particular products we import, the quantity we import yearly, and then we see how much we produce, and we say, okay, can we actually sustain ourselves on this production alone before we go around banning anything? Of course, we also need variety, and if we have platforms like in the agro industries that are well built and they're able to take from the subsistence farmers, and be able to package them and handle the imports, the exportation. That's innovations like that will definitely help in growing our economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, and we'll just go on to the next conversation. Now, this is the one that really shook me, because I remember hearing some people have this banter amongst themselves whether or not we need the police to be there. Now, it's been rumored over time that the police they want to go on strike. And so the police commissioner, a few people have said a few things, but imagine the Nigerian police going on strike. The police commissioner of Kebbi State has given a stern warning to the men under his ranks to ensure that they are not caught up in this rumor about the strike. Of course, it will translate to police personnel impunity and of course all the likes. So he goes on to say, let me equally remind you that the police is a regimented organization, and any strike action by its members will be considered as mutiny and disobedience of lawful order with its consequences. So he puts this out there for anybody who has probably considered that they will go on strike. So he goes on to say police work needs the contribution of all and sundry, as security, which involves the protection of people's lives and properties, need to be considered. And but this is where I'm going with this particular conversation. How is it that it has become to the point where the police are considering going on a strike? Is it possible that they're considering the strike, and how have we failed to the point where the people who are meant to take care of us, protect us, are suddenly now considering industrial action? Is it that the level of dissatisfaction in their workplace is more than that of any other person who is also getting paid or working and not getting what they want in return? I'll go to you, Dr. Robert, for this, because beyond security and intelligence, you may be able to give us a better context to this story.
Thank you, Niabari. You see, over the years, whether anybody wants to agree or not, there has been a deliberate attempt by the political class to weaken established democratic institutions. And it's beginning to
All right, we're having a bit of a technical challenge right there, but we'll continue in studio.
Problems.
All right, go ahead.
On several occasions, policemen have, even those that medically had the civil were not paid their allowance, were not being fed. But then the federal government decided to increase their money, despite the fact that inflation is at its height. The federal government has increased fuel pricing, increased the electricity bill, and you still need these policemen to do what? How do you expect them to pay for their families when they are risking their lives for the country? Consequently, they have no other choice but to do what they are doing. They are human beings, for God's sake, with children to feed. Now, the context in which this is involving is really terrible, because what would have expected when the president of the country some few months ago announced that the salaries of policemen would be increased, that both the justice minister, the police affairs commission, the accountant general, everybody would have hurried, given the situation that Nigeria is facing a lot of security challenges. They should have hurried up the movement, but no, they did not. To tell you that these guys are around in square holes, they all are after their money. It's very disheartening. So the president could give another month later, it has not been obeyed, forcing the people to do what? To begin to collect bribe on the road, or to do what? Or to go to armed robbery to feed their families. Why they unregimented it? I expected that people like the police commissioner should have taken a more creative approach, something innovative. Even if it's in the police station, they should create cooperative society Empower them to give these people even loans at 1% or 1.5%. Fine. This is what you do for other people. If you go to established countries like the United States of America and other countries, even the police can protest, but not within reason. You can't, beat a child and ask him not to cry. They need to do something. These guys are dying in droves. And many of them, when they die, they don't even give their family the emolument. So how do you expect them to function within this system? Do politicians receive their money? Yes. Is the president's salary delayed? No. Is the minister's salary delayed? No. So these are the issues. These guys are suffering. I am with them 100%. But I know that at any point in time, the police go on strike. I will take most to recover. So I expected that they should not allow this to come in the first place. If the police go on strike, all the brigands will be chaos. People will come out from their homes. It will be terrible for this country. It may take us back 1.5 years of security days. So let the government meet up with what is happening. Let them come to the fore and own up and solve this problem. It can't be repeating itself. Last year was something like that. Some years ago, it has been reoccurring in the past 5-6 years. So let us nip it in the bud before it becomes like artist strike, a perennial problem which every government faces.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll come to Afeni on this one. What are your thoughts on the story?
Okay, I think once again, Dr. Roberts, really nice one. Talking about these people we call police people. They are men, they are women, flesh and blood, they bleed like the rest of us. And while we have put them, while they are in front, at the very forefront of society, guarding the rest of us, it's also important we acknowledge the fact that they are human. They have needs. With the president of the economy, we can imagine how it must, be weighing on them. So we have to make sure the government, this does not continue. But at the same time, a strike action from the police would be very, very hurtful to society. You can imagine already how the society and security challenges we're facing as a country. And then we have the watchdog of the country is offline. They just go off and say they're on strike. It's going to be catastrophic. So we have to ensure that this situation does not even repeat itself. It shouldn't even be heard that Nigerian police force, the men and women that we armed and tasked to protect the citizens, are going on strike. So we have to ensure that this does not repeat itself. So it comes back to, how can we as a society ensure this? Of course, better economic policies and all that. But then beyond that, it goes to training, economic training, management and financial trainings, and of course, empowerment for the spouses of those in the police force to ensure that they are able to withstand the economic pressures that come with society and still be there to do their jobs and keep us safe, keep society. Say what you will about police force and their inefficiencies. It's still better than nothing. They still imagine how much worse it can decline if they are completely absent. So we have to ensure that this does not repeat itself. The police force in Nigeria should be well taken care of. I mean, they are the ones who keep us safe, for crying out loud. So we have to ensure this. I think doctors and the police should be people who, or among the civil service, that are well taken care of, shouldn't allow this situation degrade to this level.
Okay. So, Chinyere, over to you. Chinyere, are you there? Okay, if you can hear me, do unmute yourself, please.
I can hear you, Mia. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so I said thank you so much, even though I do not, see anything to contribute in this conversation, because there are some things that shouldn't be even talked about. It's completely unheard of. It's a complete aberration that the Nigerian police force is planning the strike. I heard it last week, and even though we see that their bosses have come out to to disabuse our minds that this is not happening, but the dire condition of the Nigerian police is enough, to go on this strike. We've seen viral videos where policemen take bribes. I saw one last week where a policeman was crying to his boss. He took bribe, and the boss was asking him to hand over the monies to him, and he started crying. A full-grown man, so somebody's father, was crying. So I think that's the height of what a human being can go through. But my question is for Dr. Roberts. In spite of all that we have seen, seeing that how this government is, insensitive. We've talked about us, we're talking about police. These are very important structures in Nigeria, and it's been left to suffer. How do we ensure a fundamental departure from what the police force is represent now? How can the Nigerian police force become more effective and accountable? We've had conversations on this show how over 90% of people applying to be police failed the test. And we've seen how decrepit and deplorable the police system is. President Muhammad Buhari has made several promises to increase their pay, make them more comfortable, but we haven't seen much in terms of implementation. But the question is again, how can the Nigerian police force become more effective and accountable?
Thank you very much for asking me that. On accountability of the Nigerian police, for instance, if I take a friend of mine in some time past applied to join the Nigerian police force. He was almost a first-class graduate. He was rejected on the ground that he had no sponsor. Who did he know? But he passed. He was very good. He couldn't join the Nigerian police. The Nigerian police force is a little bit slanted towards absorbing those the political class and those in power recommend to be employed. For the Nigerian police force to be developed and accountable, there has to be a systematic retraining and retooling of the Nigerian police force. It has to start with both the officers and the equipment. If a cursory look or visit to any of the police formations, their living quarters is terrible. They don't have water. Even while living in the back, they buy water. They don't have any police schools for their children to go at cheaper rates. They don't have any facility at all, except hovels where they live in. So how do you expect somebody who comes there to do anything? Then you look at the training. Okay, when you're going from Lagos to the east, you see policemen stacking wood, tires. Politicians run across that road every day. Majority of them, their families run there with security guards, so they don't stop them. The whole place is filled with rubbish. There is no accountability in the Nigerian police force. That one is number one. Number two, why is there no accountability? Because the government prefers them that way, the political class prefers them that way, they cheat for that. Because these policemen will actually beat them out. If these democratic institutions are allowed to be what? To perform their constitutional provided rules. Now, the system, there is poor implementation of everything said about the police, like we talked about their pay. It has not been implemented till now. The police said that the fight against Boko weapons to fight with you. The government has not done anything. It's only until recently that I heard that the IG has they brought in around 200 to be shared. After how many years? What does it take for the authorities in Nigeria to act on time to save lives? Look at the police uniform. Look at their guns. They don't even look well kept. They don't even have time to retrain these people and make them feel good. They don't even take them to areas where they can be trained on public relations and be retrained on what the law empowers them to do. One of those is I had an argument with a police officer. I went to a police, there was an accident with our vehicle. We went to a police place at Telugu. Can you believe that they told us to drop our phones? What were they afraid of? And I told the police officer, it's not your constitutional right to tell me to drop my phone. He said, that is how they operate here. I said, you cannot do what is not in the constitution, but I will obey you this time around. So you see, even the policemen, some of them don't know what they are supposed to do. They don't even know where their rights are and that of the citizen stops. So there is a fundamental issue, which is there is poor implementation. There are no developed ways of training the police. There are no certified ways of ensuring that equipment, facilities. As of now, the Nigerian police should be using drones. They should be using sophisticated equipment to at least spy on people who are about to commit crime. The prevention of crime should be at the foremost. But all of them are on the main road with the IGP, knowing that as nothing is being done. He has come in. Majority of them come with, much targeted programs they want to establish. But in the long run, they go out the same way they have gone out because this system it appears to be corrupt.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts. I'll ask you one more question before I go to Afeni in the studio. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Dr. Roberts, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes. All of the conversations we've had here can be tailored to the kind of government and their policies and, what they stand for, what they represent. As we speak, the APC convention is ongoing. Now, I'm segueing a bit from what we're talking about, but it's still connected because it's all about the government and what the government stands for, what the government believes in, what the government prioritizes. Elections are around the corner. We've heard that APC is PDP and PDP is APC. Dr. Robert, do you see a different political party entirely taking over power? And if that happens, would that be something that you will solely unpin?
Thank you. Without meeting with the present political climate in Nigeria indicates that APC and PDP are still in charge. Majority of the people in APC are old PDP members. New blood has not been injected into the political system. Thus, you should expect the same old group of people. Now, the APC convention is coming in, and the elections are way around the corner. The question is, if you look at the number of people who have collected their voters register, their voters card to register in the upcoming election, has the margin increased to remove these people from power? The answer is no. Has there been change in the political climate, the individual in this party, in their attitude, even at state level? Because when you're talking about federal level, it is also those same actors that work at the state level, even at the local government level, at the legislative level. Why should in this country legislators be giving money to the project? It's amazing. They should actually be expected to, yes, agree on the project, not execution, for God's sake. No legislator should be allowed to contract. If the government does that, you will see projects springing up, whether good or bad. If the government decides, the executive decides that no legislator, rather they can pick the types of contracts they want, but not apply it. You see that there will be a difference. This country is heading to another round of implosion, and it will be worse than anti-notice have been successfully going down, even with the large amount of borrowing underneath APC government. The money has been raped, the money has been rigged, the money has been garrulously squandered, the money has been used for things that are not, were not stated. Nothing will change from my point of view, except between now and the election time, if a party or individuals or the people decide to vote somebody, not across ethnic lines, not across somebody they believe can deliver. And there are some of them, but they are not in the front line. They don't have the resources to engage themselves into the sight of the average Nigerian. But these are people that can deliver, despite their ethnicity. If Nigerians decide to do that, then we will have a good government. And the trickle down will stop. And again, the country, it's just like this case with Malami. Malami removing a stability in a section of the country. Who gave an individual power to delete something from the constitution? Where is that done? Which nation? How? On what basis does he have that kind of power allocated to them? Even the president cannot do that. And somebody put in there decides he can remove a section of the constitution. How? So there are some certain things that Nigerians should be, the political system is rotten. It appears to be irredeemable. But the only way we can redeem it is bringing somebody who has respect for the rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. Even though I think that you should consider contesting for public office, because you sound like you have the cure-all to Nigerian problems. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's over to you, Afini. One question for you on the topic we are on. Earlier on, I heard you and Niabari talking about ASU strike, and that the students have taken to the streets of Abuja with their mattresses and stoves and pots, you know, just to draw the attention of the federal government. Police about to go on strike, maybe rumored or something that will play out in the nearest future. We do not know for now. But do you think, judging from ASU, we've seen that ASU has, I told you about how I spent 10 years in the university for a 4-year program, because it was back and forth, in and out of, you know, strike. It's shameful, really. But we've seen that the federal government has not done much in terms of shifting grounds to look into what ASU is asking for. Now, if the police decides to go on strike, do you think this is a fantastic approach? Do you think this will solve the problem that they are plagued and bedeviled with, ranging from their poor remuneration, you know, poor housing system? The list is endless. You know, don't you think there's a better way that the police can go about airing their grievance to the federal government, calling on them to see how they are going through, instead of going on strike?
Going on strike for the police. Okay, so there's only one thing I see if that strike happens: it's chaos. Like I said before, we already see how the country is. It's fragile, the security system, and you have the police force going on strike. It's going to lead to just pure chaos. As much as, you know, if you're looking at it from the standpoint of someone in the police force, you really sympathize with them. But then, as women in the police force, how it will affect the civilians, how it will affect society in general, then we can see that going on strike is not desirable at all. Of course, there's a lot that needs to be done, and this has, I think, warning of strike alone should cause the stares in the right places in our government. Just the rumor that any visionary leader would see, that just hearing a rumor of the police going on strike is an issue already. You know, we can imagine what the underbelly of society is doing, or the evil plans they have for us if this situation continues. And as for the police force, you know, as a citizen, I would plead and say the strike should not be undertaken. There are other methods to solve these problems. Their leaders have heard now. We've heard their cry, and we've heard, okay, this is the situation, and it is dire, and it is time to go about it. A peaceful protest could be done without the strike action. You know, perhaps a delegation or to the presidency or to the government, or even a peaceful protest. But I think the strike thing should not even be considered at all. You know, there was this funny story. I was at a welder shop some weeks ago, and I saw this policeman. He walked into the welder shop, and then he gave them his rifle, and he was like, they should weld this part for him. The part of his rifle was falling apart. So you can imagine if the policeman is going to a welder to fix his government-issued weapon, then so weapons that, you know, that's swear to jam in the heat of firepower. You can imagine what it would be right now, that the degradation that will require a policeman going to a welder to fix his gun. So you see, the situation is actually dire. But then the strike action was not the best solution to this. Actually, personally, we see how the government is, you know, willing to allow us to go on the strike as long as they feel they want to. So imagine a situation like that repeating in the police force. No, it's pure chaos. So there has to be another solution to this.
Hello. Yeah.
Sir.
I wanted to say something. Yeah. I must confess that the same thing you said about the strike happened to me. From my first to my master's to my PhD, I overstayed because of strike action. I understand how you feel. And I still like the way I'm quite optimistic. But I see my government as slightly, I see them as slightly irredeemable. There is no reason they should have allowed the policemen to be passing through what they are passing through. That is who can be done. They got these politicians, for God's sake. They are their primary means of deterrence for the politicians. They use them for both personal and government. So that but the government has left them with no single means of helping them out, because the police are seeing a looming danger that will spell doom for the nation, and they are calling everybody to tap the thing. There is a problem coming on. Let us try and solve this thing. It will work for everybody if we solve that problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts. Thank you so much, Afeni, for your 2 cents. We do appreciate you. It's back to Nia for the rest of the conversation.
OC, and there are conversations about oil theft. There's a lot that has been said about oil being stolen. So right after the break, we'll get into that. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to ATN Saturday. On to this conversation now. The total value of Nigeria's crude oil stolen between January 2021 and February 2022 is about $3.27 billion. That's representing 1.361 trillion at the official exchange rate of 416 to the dollar. So the federal government has declared this, and the concern is that international oil community companies and their counterparts in Nigeria have said that this massive theft across the country currently poses a serious threat, and it's not just their existence to the existence of their business in Nigeria, but also to the Nigerian economy. There was a presentation by the NPRC at an event that indicated that an oil theft rose massively like this, as an official of the IPPG stated that about 91% of the total crude produced at Bonny Terminal was stolen in January 2022. This report has gone to trend, and the NPRC said total value loss of the period of 2021 to February 2022 is about 3.27 billion, and the average monthly value loss for the period is at 233.99 million dollars. The average daily value loss for the period is about $7.72 million, and it added that losses are mainly from Bonny Terminal Network, Facado's terminal network, and Braz terminal network. The commission has outlined factors that aided crude oil theft, and this also includes inadequate security, of course, poor community engagement, economic challenges, surveillances that are not so certain to deliver, stakeholders compromises, and other exposed facilities. So this now comes as the OPTS chairman, that is Rick Kennedy, who also doubles as the managing director of Chevron Nigeria Limited, and represents the IOC, the one who represented the IOCs at the meeting rather, is described the massive theft across the country as organized criminal activity. And he said this in a statement where he said, when I say it is an organized criminality, the sophistication of the engineering involved points towards high degree of sophistication and technology, as well as the distribution. He goes on to say, I think we've just got to be honest and accept that this is not theft, but more than that. So as we see this, we are an economy that is going out to borrow every now and then. But it is sad that these numbers have come up, and it's said that we are bleeding all this. So the confusion here is, how come this theft has been so efficient, such that it's consistent like that, and these amounts of monies are lost? Who are the people who are stealing these oils? What are they using them for? How are they moving them around? And is it organized criminality, as has been asserted? So, Chinyere, I'm coming over to you on this conversation.
Thank you so much, Barry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Again, Dr. Roberts, this question is for you. There's been a back and forth about oil thefts in my states, in River State. The government is trying to do, everything they can to ensure that there's a break in local oil production, or no fire, so to speak, to stop oil theft. We hope that we see something positive come out of it, But now, in the news, we've seen that the oil theft is being facilitated by the pragmatic cooperation between security forces, the local population, and oil company employees. There's a department called Pipeline Surveillance Contractors, contractors, so to speak, that is accountable, or supposed to be accountable to ensure that things like oil theft is not heard. The question is, if we have people who are supposed to be positioned or stationed to ensure this doesn't happen, have they failed in their duties? And now that we have also heard that people who work for oil companies, the oil company employees, are people who aid and abet these things to happen, what should we begin to talk about? Because talking about the oil theft is one thing, and then seeing how it can be curbed or nip in the bud is another thing. Dr. Robert, what do you think the conversation should be at this point?
First and foremost, I would say that in the past, I carried out a news reportage on oil theft in the Niger Delta, and I noticed something. That anytime there was increased militancy in the Niger Delta, there was an increase in the price of crude oil globally, especially in Europe. Now, this portends that there is a relationship between crude oil theft in Niger Delta. Now, we're asking, what is going on? Who are responsible? It's simply these are simply the political appointees. They are the stealing the nation's land. Undoubtedly, the military and the police, they are active connivers for involvement in such action, and the desire for many of them to be posted there has only exacerbated matters, because they don't go there to collude with teams. Now, the government cannot do anything but take responsibility, because the president is the Minister of Petroleum. If they cannot handle it, they should give it to our superman handle. If they cannot handle it, they should give it to state government. Then put monitoring teams there, because the government has failed in managing our refinery, managing production, managing anything concerning oil. So there is a problem. The problem is that the government should answer some of these things and ensure that they are in the monitoring level. It's what developed countries are doing. Thank you. If I go further, it will be very, very, you will begin to understand the level of rust involved in all these things. It's a collusion between those who are meant to safeguard the society and those who are security agents. They are the ones moving these things. Remember, the governor had to publicly cry out that both a DPR and an army official be removed from the state, because he said that they were involved in the illegal work. from the federal government concerning those individuals who are now billionaires from public. They may have been posted to more lucrative places to go and continue their attitude. But this is the country we live in. It is our country. We don't have anyone else. And we will only have to make it work. Thank you.
All right, so there's also some alleged lack of transparency on the part of the NNPC. Do you share in that bias?
The NNPC is number one culprit. The NNPC is the number one culprit. And when you talk about the NNPC of the GM data, majority of them are not producing. The last case of bad fuel that they brought into this country, can you see that now the partner that NNPC is not able?
Are they not all who are supposed to be managing there? Hello?
Dr. Robert, we can hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. These are the people who are supposed to be monitoring. Okay. The NPC is supposed to be monitoring the production. They failed in production. They failed in circulation. They failed in monitoring. They failed in accountability. Why then are you keeping the same people there? And they are the ones who make sure that when there is employment, it's only their children and wives and relatives that are employed. The country is in a problem. The NNPC is the major culprit. They should be sanctioned. But the president lacks the will to tackle corruption. So that is the bane of what we are seeing. How can a nation lose 1.something trillion in months? If that money is given to the Nigerian police, Nigerian army, and ASU, nobody will go on strike for the next 10 years. So, and this is the money they say they are going to borrow from outside and share, and nothing is done. So, this is a vicious cycle of nepotism, and it's a vicious cycle of people not doing what they're supposed to do in the country, and it's terrible. How can we survive this? When we're talking about the erranties of PDP, some people used to say that PDP stole too much. But this one is raping. It's plutocratic raping. It is coming from every corner. They are so vain about it. They do these things and they don't expect you to talk about it. They don't expect you to come after them. And even if you come after them, ethnocentrism comes into play. So it's a crazy thing. This country we are beginning to lose our standards. And it's affecting everything we do. How can a government lose? Okay, let us times that money by 12. And you see that it's almost equal to Nigeria's GDP in the year. Times it by 12. What are we doing? Can we pay public servants, those who actually work? Can we pay teachers who actually work? Is it ministries that some ministries that they don't work? And they give them 13 months salary. Why should the government increase the amount for Federal Inland Revenue Service and not increase that of the police immediately? These are issues that we're supposed to, all of them are interwoven. These are social actors within the same field. These phenomena that are occurring simultaneously. So, without doubt, there is a problem. The president should accept responsibility and solve these things once and for all. It's not rocket science. Thank you, Chia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts. Afeni, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am, Chia. I'm here.
Yeah, so the theft in the Niger Delta used to be something that we were afraid of while it was happening, because it was being done by the Niger Delta militants, not to mention names now. But we have seen that this has moved from the Niger Delta militants to government appointees, and even security officers have been fingered as being part of the oil theft. Does this in any way bother you, the level of crime and the level of degradation that we have seen in the Nigerian polity?
The situation of things in the Niger Delta is really appalling, where you see that criminality even seems to pay more than people putting good, honest work in their everyday lives. A situation where a country can afford to bleed over 1 trillion naira. It is really, really appalling. And then the security challenges. A couple of years ago, when during the height of the militancy issue and everything subsided, we thought it was going to get better. And then we have the issue of illegal refinery and oil theft, and we see the millions and trillions that are being made from it. And we know without a doubt that it goes up in cadres of the government, apart from, like you mentioned, oil workers, the police, and communities that are in these explorations. We also know that it goes up even the politicians and those in government backing up and aiding this process. Same country that complains daily that the funds are not sufficient to cater for all aspects of the government. A country that's still suffering from basic issues like electricity and water in this 21st century. Imagine what a 1.2 trillion would have done if you put it in another sector, invested it in this, and how we can grow economy profitably. It's really, really sad, and it shows that we have a long way to go. We still have a lot of growing to do as a country.
All right, Chinyere, are you there? Are you still there? All right. Thank you so much. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, of course, on to our next story. Foreign investments as 14 Nigerian states seek $15 billion investments from the UAE. All right. Quick break. When we come back, of course, ATN Saturday continues. Welcome back to ATN Saturday, and of course I am Niabari Fakai. With me today I have Afeni Alaputa and of course Dr. Robert Izamu. He is joining us online. Chinyere also is joining from Lagos. Now on to this next conversation. It's still talking about a lot of money going round, and we have seen that 14 Nigerian states are seeking foreign direct investment up to the tune of $15 billion from businesses and organizations from the United Arab Emirates. And yes, they are seen to they are hoping to pitch proposals to investors at the forthcoming 11th annual investment meeting in Dubai. So the AIM meeting is being organized by the UAE Ministry of Economy and is scheduled for March the 29th and the 31st. The gathering will provide delegates of 14 Nigerian states opportunities and ideal channels rather to share and promote investment opportunities in their respective states. That is what the executive director in charge of strategy at the Nigerian Governors Forum, that's what he says about this move. So as it is, of course, a lot of numbers, and we're hoping to get value in return as Nigerians kind of believe that while monies are being lost on the one hand, does it make sense to get more? Some other people are saying, okay, of course, get more, because these things will aid basically businesses, across sectors. And they're looking at agriculture, energy, technology, transportation, logistics, tourism, and hospitality, finance, and also education. So Abia State is seeking $1 billion in investment. That's 416.26 billion naira, and for the Ayumba Economic City Development, also $288 million. Leather and Garment City Project, we also have $300 million, and the Abia State Special Agro Processing Zone Project at about $450 million. So Akwa Ibom also tried to convince investors to bring in $2.6 billion into Ibom Deep Sea Port, Ibom Industrial City Project, Ibom Science Park and Industrial City, agro-business and construction of jetties and the likes in the state. So on the lineup also Bauchi, Bayelsa, Cross River, Edo, Ekiti and Enugu states will also seek $88 million, 2.3 billion, 3.5 billion, 1.1 billion and 104 million and 160 million respectively for maritime projects, agriculture and infrastructural developments. So it is also saying that the governments of Kwara, Niger, Ondo, Plateau, Sokoto and Yobe states will be telling investors to also consider them bringing $97 million, $184 million, $2.5 billion, $33 million, $388 million, $910 million respectively for the implementation of projects in agriculture, hospitality, infrastructure, mining and other sectors respectively. So these are what the numbers look like, and this is what the promise is looking like. But I'll come to you, Dr. Robert, on this thought. First of all, you know, I saw a picture. I saw a picture of Dubai in 1990. I saw a picture of Dubai, and I saw it in comparison with Lagos State, and I also saw that picture in comparison with Abuja, and I saw that picture in comparison with what Dubai is right now, and it looks like magic obviously happened, but in the analogy where I saw those pictures compared, it was said that this place, the United Arab Emirates, of course, they made up their mind to build something, and they got intentional about it, and that's why we have Dubai and every other business around it, and it looks like everybody in the world has invested in that part. And so this, on the one hand, some people will say, oh wow, let's hope that what happened there can happen here, but what we are seeing is that monies are being requested for the developments to happen here. What I do not know is how certain these investors can decide to come in here and do business. What is the promise that whatever has inspired us to go there and ask for their hand and their aid, what is the promise that it will pay off in? So, Dr. Roberts, on this story, what's your take? If you can hear me, Dr. Roberts, you can unmute yourself now on this particular story of the investments and everything. What's your take? Can you hear me, Dr. Robert?
Oh.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
I said, so in light of all this entire brief, we've seen that at the time, at 1999, when we had images of Dubai looking more like a desert.
Hello, could you repeat the question again?
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me, Dr. Robert? If you can hear me, do confirm. All right, I'll come back into the studio here. Afeni is with me, and of course, you've seen these numbers. Generally, what's your take on the story?
Okay, thank you, Nia. You know, the first part that struck me was borrowing, or in this case, asking for, trying to do an investment of $15 billion. Yeah. And while I don't see anything wrong with raising investments, we have to know that a country like ours that's already in debt should be careful about, requesting foreign aid on this scale. But then looking at the applications of whatever investments we intend to make, what is the goal? You made mention of a statement, comparing Nigeria and Dubai as at, the 90s, and what's the possibility of replicating that accelerated growth. The thing about Dubai or the Middle East is they're from their system of governments. They have a system of continuity. Right here, with the problems of democracy and even the political parties without having a specific party philosophy, at the end of everyone's tenure, the next person comes up with their own game plan, their strategy, completely discarding whatever was on ground. If we intend to build something stable, we will need to continue. So you come on seat and you see, okay, this is the strategy, this is the plan, this is the 10-year plan, this is the structure, these are the blueprints, this is what we have on ground so far. How do we continue? It's not just about, requesting funds from countries outside. You send a proposal, you show a growth plan, look at it from a completely business point of view, because whoever where these funds are being requested from, they're looking at it as an investment. So we would like to see a proposal, see a business plan, see, the targets and see strategies for implementing this. And then, of course, they'll be expecting returns. It's not a gift, it's an investment. So what are the possibilities? These industries that were mentioned, finance, education, although I'm wondering what education is doing in there, education and tourism, are these things that we have to now go outside the country for? This is how many years after independence? We recently talked about the country bleeding about 1.2 trillion naira. If we had a better management system, we would be able to make these things happen from ourselves, from our pockets, and whatever returns from them will go back into the coffers of the Nigerian government and will circulate. That's how we build. You have to look at nation building as a business. Whatever investments you're making, you look at what are the returns for them and for us. Or are we just selling our souls for a few $billion and our children will come up and suffer for it again? Sometimes we have to just settle down and say this is what we want and this is what we're willing to do for it. Because there are always the people who will be willing to invest in an oil producing country, because eventually they would get they will find a way to get their money back. But then what is the goal for us? What is the big picture? Beyond asking and raising investments just to power different sectors, the next 4 years will probably come back to the same issues that were mentioned. Like it also mentioned power. What is the strategy? What is the goal? The Nigerians you're creating opportunities for, you're making these investments for, do they know what it is? Do they know, okay, this is the strategy? Or we'll just go out and tell people outside and say, okay, this is what we want to do and invest in it. The people in those states, do they actually know that this money is coming in? Are there platforms, are there businesses that are ready to take advantage of the opportunities that you're bringing in? Or will you just go back and then get lost in the wind like we tend to see in our country? So it goes beyond requesting investment. What are the strategies? What do we have in place? What do we have on ground? And also, personally, I like to look at the possibility of generating in-house. We see trillions of naira or trillions of dollars being budgeted yearly for Nigeria's growth. Where does that go to? How do we reconcile that with the budget and with the investments we're taking in? Is there a goal? Do we just wake up and say, okay, we need so and so amount of money, and then we go out of the country and we look for investors from anywhere else? I mean, the UAE is also an oil producing country like us. So I don't see a reason why we should still be looking for investments. We have the same thing. I think what we read right now in Nigeria is structures, not just more and more and more investments. The ones we have, do we manage them? I think the one thing we need to build in Nigeria is a good managerial structure, a good managerial culture to be able to manage, because eventually those investments they are making, they are subject to degradation over time. So would we also request for money in the future to maintain them, or would we be able to maintain them in-house? So these are things that we need to pay attention to. Personally, whenever I get in touch with my friends, we see that the young people right now are trying to think outside the box. Looking beyond the government, we are actually looking at how can we go beyond this to create a favorable employment, a favorable environment for ourselves and for the future. Because we personally, I think most of the young people have actually, given up on a government to produce or providing what we need. We are finding ways to create it for ourselves. And I think as a government too, we should learn to adopt something that will help us, looking into what we have to develop from there. When the UAE and Dubai and the others, when they started, I'm not sure they went around seeking that kind of capital investments. Even if they did, I think we were probably even owing substantially more than that right now. So we have a lot of work to do on ourselves.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Robert, on to you on this conversation. I had asked before you were cut off. You've heard the numbers for the investments that are out there, a list of states and the monies that they're looking for. But you know where the UAE was in the 90s, and you know where they are now. So Nigeria going hat in hand, going to ask investors to come over. One, is it a good look? Two, will it work because we have gone to the UAE to get investments? Is there a certainty that with this monies injected into our economies in these diverse sectors, is it like light at the end of a tunnel, or is it just more complications that we are set to get into as a nation? Dr. Robert, if you can hear me, do unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. Nearby without that, we're still going to end where the other four funds have ended. UAE, I don't think they have more resources in other areas than Nigeria. I don't think the economy should be, we have the population, we have the manpower, we have everything. But I think Nigeria needs to begin to think like outside the box, like Afibo said, like the young ones are thinking outside the box. I think it's high time we begin to look for corporate people like the Asian giants, somebody who has established himself very well and is a leader in the corporate world to come and govern us. Now, what we're seeing is a collapse of the political sphere because majority of them lack management principles. These governors are going to borrow money. For instance, some of these governors are in the north where they are mining gold at this moment. They've still not utilized the resources within their domains, but they rather want to borrow. And like you rightly pointed out, if they borrow now to establish, will they borrow to maintain? How long will it continue? This borrowing spree, as occasioned by the federal government, leading us to nowhere. Okay, for the years Buhari has borrowed, there is no good road, no good power. There is nothing that's good. The economy is even worse than that before. So the essence of borrowing, to me, by anybody, it's not worth it. Okay, let us look at the case of that Anambra State governor who was just arrested by the EFCC. All the money he borrowed to establish an airport, and you calculate the money he borrowed. Is there some certain things that people should understand? One. And two, they should be thinking of using, even if they borrow, the money should be utilized in industries for production only. Production only. Not services, production only. Or creating tech hub for the youths. These are the kind of things that they can do that can, their intellectual property can gain funds for the country. It's not all about, building roads. The ones that have been built, that were built, and what has been done with them. Look at the politicians. We say that ASU is on strike. Do you know how many new investors have come on board? Next thing, one governor will take the part of his money and say he's building, investing in his village. We're in a crisis of minds here. The whole thing is imploding. The more you read the news, the more you come out with the same tacit understanding that the politicians do not know what they're doing.
Okay. Chinyere, are you set to join us on this conversation now?
Over to you, Nia.
Thank you, Dr. Robert. Chinyere, if you're there, do unmute yourself if you can hear me. All right, do unmute yourself if you can hear me, Chinyere. Can you hear me, Chinyere? Okay. So, as it is, of course, now, what are the angles? What are the types of where would this monies go? Tech. Now, we have Afeni here. Of course, is a software developer, amongst other things. You've also seen the numbers and the distribution of stuff like this. If you had this kind of investments was coming into Nigeria, as you've heard, what would you want as someone who runs a startup? What would you want from it for your business?
Okay, couple of weeks ago, I went past the library here in Port Harcourt, and it got me thinking of when I was much younger. I used to go to the library, but right now, you know, with mobile devices, phones, tablets, computers, I could get whatever book I want from the comfort of my home. I could sit down and read and all that, and it got me thinking: how can we, utilize these facilities? So I thought, okay, what if we converted these libraries into, like Nia said, tech hubs, where people could go. You even have co-working spaces. The beauty of this is, with the way tech is structured, you could have a job remotely, and you need a place with electricity and data and a conducive environment. So you sign up with a government-owned and properly managed tech hub with facilities there. Probably you pay a premium. Back at the library, you had a membership fee, so you have a membership premium, and you're able to pay and use the facilities. You're generating revenue. The government could actually use it to sponsor trainings beyond the normal skill acquisition programs, where you have teaching people sewing or shoemaking and giving them those at the end of the day. You can actually train people on 21st century skills that will allow them thrive beyond an economy that's only caters for the bare minimum. How can we keep people afloat? But then we can encourage people to thrive, to create, to imagine. I personally do not like doing this, but we see in our neighbors in foreign countries where they organize programs to boost creativity. The Dubai 2020 Expo is about to come to an end. For years now, it's been ongoing. You see the latest technologies and innovations from countries, from Dubai itself, from their companies and their startups, showcasing the products they have. But right here in Nigeria, we see that most of this is done by individuals or organizations. The government has little to no part to play in it. They have the Open Source Festival going on in Lagos for techies and coders and developers. And you see people in Nigeria are doing amazing things. But then we barely know about it. The government does not care. So a capital investment like that could actually go a long way to equipping, the young people, getting them taught, getting them, the right knowledge. And also, personally, I will still advocate for upgrading our university systems with curriculums and facilities to aid and really grow our education, the quality of education beyond getting the bare minimum. You come out, you see a computer science student, he comes out of school and he knows little to nothing about technology. Or worse, you see a biology student who finishes 4 years in university and has never looked through a microscope. What was that person supposed to do? So growing our economy, like Mr. Nia said, Dr. Robert said, should be on production, manufacturing, on knowing, okay, this is what we have, how can we push it? How can we make the best of it? How can we improve homegrown technology? There is so much potential in the Nigerian youth. You go around, personally, from my point of view, or from the platforms I am opportune to be on, I get to see the amount of things that people in Nigeria are doing, the creative minds we have here, both in the arts, in the sciences, in technology. But then all this is left. If you have people fending for themselves, frankly, you see Nigerian businesses doing well, you really have to say kudos to those in it, because they've gone through a system that's, sorry to say this, but is designed, I don't know if it is on purpose, but it is designed to pull them down. So they have to overcome the natural inertia of business, of technology, and also overcome the inertia and the pull of the society they find themselves in. We have so much potential as a country, but we're looking in the wrong direction. Imagine borrowing that amount of money to, pave roads and build jetties, and in the next 3 years or 4 years, someone else will come up and say, okay, the other person didn't build the jetty very well, I'll build a better one. And they go in and then they borrow the billions and leave society at its key points struggling. They're still having electricity issues, still having, health issues. The health sectors are still, and then you find the people, the young ones who are supposed to be manning these institutions, the young ones with the hunger and the creativity, they are left to struggle. They are left to trying to make ends meet, and it becomes a self-sustaining situation. It becomes a multi-headed hydra, because as the situation just keeps sustaining itself, people go around trying to find, how to make ends meet, and when the situation does not provide one, they turn to crime, criminality, and corruption. And in a few years, these people are now in that place of power. They have been schooled in a system of corruption, of mediocrity, and it becomes self-sustaining. The young ones right now who are struggling to keep their head above water and maintain the right mindsets, Dr. Robert called it, a battle of minds, to maintain the right minds and intellectual capacity that will help this economy and the society and Nigeria thrive. Nigeria cannot just be, trying to maintain. What is the goal? Where are we going? I think a book from the monarch of one of the Middle Eastern countries, the vision, My Vision, talks about a central vision and a drive for the country. And we can see here we're envying, we're going there to borrow. So right now, where are we going as a country? What products do we have comparative advantage in? How do we have vertical integration in the economic process? How do we utilize a lot of demand and supply to our benefit? We can't keep trying to copy and say we want to be like, what do we have here? And what can we sell as Nigerians? How can we develop? So beyond borrowing and trying to get more capital investment, how can we, from what we already have, develop our country?
Okay, thank you so much, Afeni. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, of course, we get into the sit-at-home conversation as Soludo reorders Anambra workers to report on Monday for work. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to ATN Saturday. On this particular story, I would really love Dr. Robert to give us context, because this is one thing that a lot of us have been trying to analyze over time, how Anambra State, how the Easterners, how Igbos who are given to business have to stay home every Monday. For the Igbo man, it's the money, it's the hour, So the governor, of course, his new governor, and he has come with a lot of reforms in play. We analyzed his transition committee first, and it looked quite loaded at the time. A few things have transpired from him being governor till this point in time, but he has come up to say that the public servants in the state have to report to work on Monday, and so offices, including those of the government and schools that have remained shut since the trial of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, began last year, and those who would try to disobey were often threatened to enforce the sit at home. So although IPOB leadership and since then has rescinded the order, it looks like somehow people have still been staying at home, because some molestations happen. Different parties and different players have come to hijack whatever it is and harass people in their shops, in their places of businesses. So the question is the Southeast supposed to continue sitting at home, until Nnamdi Kanu is released. So it makes sense that Governor Soludo has come out to insist that they be let, everybody gets back to work. And of course, he has considered sanctions. There should be sanctions, or it's been said that there will be sanctions for people who do not adhere to this. So, in a memo that was circulated by the head of service, it is directed that workers should ensure that they are at their duty posts, warning that absence from work will bring about sanctions. Okay, so the circular reads: following the need to reposition the service for better performance and productivity, His Excellency the Governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has directed that henceforth all the public servants should report at their places of work every Monday as every other weekday. All right, so he is positioned as someone who wants to start and ensure that this happens. Is it a case of his decision and persistence to ensure that the economy of the state goes back to how it was before? And the question I also ask is, how well would this sit with the people, and what oppositions does he stand to face? Dr. Robert, over to you on this, please.
Thank you, Neil Barry. The fact is this, that evil largely tries because men of good will refuse to do. When this initial sit-at-home order began, and I noticed one thing, and that was that the police themselves, who are the custodians of law and order, refused to come out. How much more would politicians expect the average man to come out who does not have a weapon? But he needs to do and things are done properly. The governor himself wants to come back into full force. He wants the productivity level of these people to come up. But at the same time, these are human beings. You should not use them as a fool. The crisis is the crisis of leadership. The police did not come out. Then you don't expect a public servant to come out, because he may be shot, or brigands. If brigands are posted, who would he report to? These are the issues. So let the governor address the issue of ensuring that there is adequate security. People are ready, the Anambrarians are ready and willing to work, and I don't think that will really stop. It will be able to deter anybody coming. Now he's going to face opposition. And that opposition will definitely stem from those who gain something from the sit-at-home, either by omission or commission. Some people gain something by that. And it's also amazing that for years now, the government, Nigerian security agencies, have not caught one single individual who has been involved in the media. They've not been able. All we hear is that some people were shot and they were tend to be noted to be hyper, blah 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 blah. But that's not what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to catch some of these people in the act and show that the police has the force, has the necessary tools to ensure that the public is safe. Now, the governor is going to take oppositions, both from within and because definitely those who are being used. But I'm sure that the governor of Anambra State is intellectually capable and morally enabled to take care of such, oppositions, which will not deter him from putting his people first. But I must appeal to him through this medium and tell him that it is best for him to ensure that he works closely with all the security agencies. And on that day, the policemen should be at alert instead of collecting bribes. They should be at alert ensuring that they do their work without sentiment. That will send the message across to everybody, and to know that it is no longer business as usual for those miscreants who utilize the sit at home to wreak havoc on the general populace. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Over to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, I have a feeling in the studio he's not a number, but I know that he's also someone who's a professional that walks by the day and knows the worth of hours. What's your take on this story?
Okay. I think, like Dr. Robert said, it goes beyond asking the people to resume work. People who have been harassed and abused by others when they are working on Mondays would probably be afraid of resuming when they are not certain of any security measures put in place for their safety. So I think the first thing is they should be aware, or they should be made confident that they will be protected and there's adequate security. If there's any harassment and they call or they raise an alarm, there will be adequate security measures taken for their safety. But if those are not in place, then whatever order, whatever policy you're making in terms of making people come to work would be nullified by the very fact that the people themselves are afraid for their safety. So a situation where a government agency, personally, for my company, imagine staff not showing up on Mondays because of some issue for a period of time. We know how much it suffers. And imagine an entire state, you have civil servants not showing up on Mondays because of the issue, because of the Nnamdi Kanu issue and all that. It's important right now that people be made confident in the fact that they would be well taken care of, they'll be protected. And then the situation like this should not be allowed to, go on for this long. Protests could start, but then should not extend this long for an entire state. So I think on this issue, it's just make people feel safe, and then you can make them come to work.
Okay. All right. Over to you, Chinyere. I know you're set to join us now on the conversation. Chinyere, are you there? Can you hear me? All right. Okay. When you come around. So, Dr. Robert, now, I spoke about support and the economy of the number of people. How exactly do you think Dr. Soludo is going to shift things? Because he has come with a lot of promise and with a lot of positive vibes. We've seen that he's trying to turn away sit at home. The other day he spoke outrightly about his position with the IPOP people and the ones who've been causing insecurity in the southeast and all that. So he seems to be coming out guns blazing, if I choose to say that. What do you think his drive will look like, and what inhibitors do you think are there or he may run into, as the case may be?
Okay. I want to tell you this, that Soludo enjoys the support of everybody in the state. Actually trained to make things work. He's actually trained to visualize and to apply the necessary actions to create necessary reactions. Okay. Now, saying that, Soludo, by his first action, deregulated the economy, his transportation, by forcing the towns out from the parks. So critically, within this period, transportation will reduce because majority of them were feeding fat and using money from such parks to perpetuate their ignoble acts in ensuring that transportation remains high. But when the government begins to modify things and ensure that things work properly, transportation will definitely reduce, and this will have a spiral effect on the other aspects of the Anambra State economy and other states.
Okay, a bit of a technical
is going to have some, because uprooting these young men from the packs of behavior, which may include robbery for an increase in. Okay, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead,
All
Mr. Robert.
right. Now this starts. This starts to cut a breach in security. Okay, of them work in the parks. They are used to a certain standard and a certain income, which may reduce. So if not properly managed, is positive state. Then there are those who also are linked to this, because there are some people in power who may have links to this guy in the park he has taken out. Because for things to work, people will be dislocated and nothing exists in a vacuum. So those people will definitely have to fend for themselves and try other things to make ends meet. So, but we pray that he will set the necessary machinery in motion so that people will not be unduly affected by actions of government. Like I said, he enjoys a large support base because he has been there and is not somebody who has been known, who has shown himself to be profligate. Consequently, Soludo is, at this point in time, people have embodied the hopes of both the Ngige and P2B on him. He is assuming a messianic form to the people of Anam after the last administration, restricted to only those close to the government. So Soludo has shown that he is able to welcome new ideas, which can be injected into the system to make the system work. But I will also adjourn him to let him not, be too vocal on some of these things. We prefer to see actions, then the explanations will follow, so that the people will be carried along. Because on some of those occasions, his detractors may decide to, use some of those things and, make things harder for the administration to succeed.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Robert, on that. One last thought. We have just a few minutes on this. Chinyere, do you have any questions for Dr. Robert on the sit-at-home story?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I have one question for him. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
The sit-at-home order has, in some quarters, been described as counterproductive, and then in another setting, we see that there's a reason for the sit-at-home order, which is to maybe draw the federal government's attention to releasing Nnamdi Kanu. But the new governor of Anambra State, that has been there for barely a fortnight, his comments have been described as repressive by some people that I know who are from that state. And they also think he's insensitive. People not coming out on Monday is not because they don't want to come out. They come out and they get killed by IPOB members, and then some security forces as well. And they're asking if, that's the governor now, shouldn't take time to look at what the reasons are why people are not coming out to work on Monday and see how security measures should be put in place, before giving such orders. Dr. Robert, do you think that the governor is insensitive to the plight of the people? And would you say that his orders are repressive, as some people have alleged?
I wouldn't use the word repressive. He's a man of innate self-belief. He believes that things can work, and he will be part of that that functionality within the system. The truth there, like you pointed out, is that there should be adequate security. The citizens of a state shouldn't be made to be fodder for both the actors, the state actors, and the non-state actors involved in that altercation. Now, the issue of the IPOB sit-at-home came as a result of the Igbo intellectuals not having a say in things affecting the Igbo. On Mazi Kanu, who claims to appeal to the poor people of the state, who feel that his flight is their flight and he's incarcerated because of them. They are obeying it out of their own volition. Then, The governor is saying that people should come out. The governor should ensure adequate security. The governor should take responsibility. He can't just allow people to come out and be shot. You know, what really appalls me is that people are talking about this shit at home. But nobody is talking about how many people the police killed during the lockdown. These are people who are human beings, and they are not sticks. The police shot people who were walking on the road, who did not commit any crime. Sitting at home was not an offense under that if you don't sit at home. There was no jail term attached to it in the Constitution. But the police shot and killed people. Nobody is talking about such things. So there is a lack of accountability with that system. Soludo cannot force people to go and die. That one is certain. But he enjoys a large following of goodwill. And whether we like it or not, you know, it's hydra-headed. Because when the state needs up its income. Thus, the governor is coming from the right direction. But like you said, the necessary things need to be put in place. It shouldn't be so like some people use the word draconian. It should have a human face. Leadership must have a human face to be effective. Over to you, Chinyere.
All right, before you go, Dr. Roberts, there's one Simon Ekpa. I'm not sure who he is, but there's been so much talk about him enforcing the sit-at-home order. And some people are saying that Soludo should have talks, roundtable meetings with these people and find out what they're asking for before before making any sort of comment. Do you think this is what the governor should do at this time?
Yes, of course. The governor should contact all the actors and fashion out a means of handling all of them. That is his job. You know, if let us look at leadership from the etheric level, God is the God of both the sinner and the good man. He's not only the God of the good person. He created both the good one and leader of both the good ones. And consequently, if there are some people dissatisfied with such a thing, it is the governor's role and his job to reach out to them and to ensure that things work better for everybody. Thus, before the governor will force public servants to come out to the offices, and some of them may be shot or killed, he should also have contacted these people. Although IPOB, on the other hand, have said that they are not involved, they've cancelled the sit at home. But there seems to be some factions, some breakaway factions in IPOB which are enforcing that. So he needs to get in contact with them and not use poor women and children and men as shield for this political macabre dance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts, for your 2 cents. It's been quite refreshing having you on the show this Saturday. Thank you so much, Afeni, for also finding time to be here. We sincerely do appreciate you. It's back to you, Nia, for the rest of the program.
Thank you so much, Chinyere.
Thank you, Chinyere.
Yes.
Thank you
for joining in. Okay, Dr. Robert, thank you so much for being part of it. And, of course, Afeni, thank you for making it into the studio, as he said. Know this, Monday I'll still be on the Atlantic Blowout, so get ready for very punchy conversations come then. But transmission